It's a journey. It's built on solidarity, equality, and fairness. It's a journey celebrating democracy. As the progress...
Testing.
Our voices need to be heard, more than just casting a vote once every 5 years. Our Together journey across Europe started back in 2016, when Europe was shaken to its core. The rise of nationalism and populism became a reality, not only for British citizens, but for millions of Europeans. Since then, we've gathered in public spaces, town halls and community centers. We are not going to stand by and let Europe be torn apart. We have to fight for our vision of Europe, a society for the many, not the few. That's why we are going local, listening to each other, putting our heads together, and finding concrete solutions. The 2019 European elections will be the most important ever held, but we all need to shape the journey and not just the end result. Together is our chance to contribute, our chance to make change possible. Together, we are all working for a strong and progressive Europe. Only together we can. And together, we will. It's time to fight for your future. It's time to fight for a fair and social Europe. Let's do that together.
Good evening, Brussels. Let's sing this properly. Una mattina mi sono svegliato. Oh bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao, ciao. Una mattina mi sono svegliato e ho trovato l'invaso. Oh partigiano, portami via. Oh bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao, ciao. Partigiano, portami via, che mi sento di morire. Oh, se io muoio da partigiano. Oh bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao, ciao. Se io muoio da partigiano, tu mi devi seppellire lassù in montagna. Oh bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao, ciao. E seppellire lassù in montagna nell'ombra d'un bel fior. E questo è il fiore partigiano. Oh bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao, ciao. Questo è il fiore da partigiano, morto per la libertà. E questo è il fiore da partigiano, morto per la libertà. E questo è il fiore da partigiano, morto per la libertà. Good evening, Brussels!
Gentlemen? Oh, you can now. Okay, that is a very, very hard act to follow. If you like, you can give me a round of applause, just to give me some encouragement, even though I'm not going to sing at all. Thank you very, very much. So, esteemed speakers, ladies and gentlemen, of course, those of you who are here with me in the Jardin du Musée des Sciences Naturelles in Brussels, and of course, those of you who are joining us online from the comfort of your homes and offices and gardens. Good afternoon. A very, very warm welcome to this event, Shaping Our Society, Time for Another Future, which, as you all know, is organised and hosted by the group of the Progressive Alliance of Socialists and Democrats in the European Parliament. Very important, can you please check, first of all, that you've got headsets? Okay, raise your hand if you haven't, because somebody will come and help you out. We have 3. We have interpretation in English, French, and German. German is on channel 1, English on channel 2, and French on channel 3. So, of course, you can listen, you can ask questions, you can make comments in all of those languages. Very important, can you please check that your phones are on silent? There's always somebody who hasn't. There's plenty of people who will reach for their pockets. Who could switch their phone off entirely until the end of this event? Come on, who could still do it? Who's not that addicted? You could? You weren't sure? You could? You really could? You will do it. Okay, and you're showing me. Okay, well, you don't have to switch them off because we have a plethora of fabulous speakers for you today, and doubtless they will provide you with some wise and engaging quotes that you can send out there into the Twitter sphere, #EuropeTogether. I think you must all know that by heart. My name is Katrina Sickle. I'm very privileged, genuinely, very delighted to be your moderator for what promises to be an inspiring and a thought-provoking event. It's got keynote speeches, we've got some dynamic debates, and some artistic performances, and more. And all that between now and about, I don't know, just before 7:30 when I release all of you for alcohol. First question, who's here for the content of the event? Good. Who's here because they quite like to have, the reception at the end of the event? Okay, that's not bad. Okay, another quick question, because you know who I am. Who's under 25? Good. Who's over 50? Okay, fabulous. Thank you very, very much. A quick word from me, very quick, on the backdrop, the aims of this event. So you all know it's taking place within the European Week for Democracy. This has been a whole week packed full of events, strategic debates, political discussions, including the School of Democracy initiative, of course. And all of these were dedicated. Yeah, who was clapping? Was somebody clapping? Clap away. I'm happy for noise. Clap. Clapping is good. That's lovely, actually. Normally I have to sort of urge people to clap, so clap whenever you like, okay, literally. And all of that is dedicated to defending the vision and the values for the European community to which S&D is committed. Now, of course, you all know, otherwise you've got your head in the sand, that this takes place just 2 months before the European elections, and also that it's framed within a 2-year journey, okay, in which a journey to shape a new direction for Europe. And it began in Brussels in 2016, and it comes full circle back here to the capital of Europe in the run-up to those big elections. So this event is actually just one more step in this journey, and there are smaller Go Local events that are still happening until mid-April, including in Romania, in Hungary, and in Finland. So it's all go. I am going to make way for your first speaker now, but just before I finish my introduction, as a Brit and as a Belgian, actually, since November 2017, I just want to remind us that this event falls on a very, very important day, because we're commemorating the 3rd anniversary of the Brussels bombings and the 2nd anniversary of the Westminster attack. So I thought it was very important to say that before we proceed. So thank you very, very much. That is absolutely enough from me, because I'm now going to give the floor to a very prominent transatlantic guest. Could you give him a warm round of applause, please? Thank you very much.
Wow, look at this turnout. Is this incredible? Hello, everybody. Thank you. Thank you. Please sit. This is tremendous. This is tremendous. Who's ready to tell me how incredible I am? What a great job I'm doing. Anybody? Anybody? They love me here in Europe, I have to tell you. I love coming to Brussels. I know I called it a hellhole, but it's the best hellhole out of all of them. It really is. Now, you guys have a painting in the museum here in Brussels, And it's a pipe. It's a pipe. It's a pipe. But they say it's not a pipe. It's a pipe, but it's not a pipe. Isn't that great? The painter, the guy who did this, got away with that. And I show each one of my spokespeople that painting of a pipe that they say is not a pipe. Do you see what I did there? Is that tremendous? Very important. Very important. Now, I have many, many friends here in Brussels. Brussels. I love the way that sounds. Brussels. That's great. I have to tell you. And I heard that Steve Bannon moved to Brussels. There we go. Steve's here. There he is. But actually, Steve's a complete loser. Total loser. I have to tell you. I don't think I'm going to be meeting him for tea. Yeah, me and Steve-O. That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. But also, something about Brussels I find unusual. You people eat your steaks raw. Raw! What is that about? Raw steak. I never heard of that. Because you know how I like my steaks. I used to sell the best steaks, incredible steaks, amazing steaks, Trump steaks. But like many, many of my businesses, there was such a huge success that we had to discontinue it because we couldn't keep up with the demand. It's incredible. It's incredible. It's amazing. It's amazing. I have to tell you, and amazing people here today, amazing people, all of you, smart people, incredible people. But I'm going to prove how amazing you people are. Let's take a poll. Let's take a poll, because I'm polling at 92%. Did you know that? Did you know that? 92%. That's incredible. But let's take a poll and be honest. Be honest. We're all friends here. Am I right? And it doesn't matter if you're from the U.S. or you lived in the U.S. It doesn't matter. Just a poll for us here in the group. All right. So if this were the the November 2016 election, who here would have voted for crooked Hillary Clinton by a round of applause? Absolutely nobody. Sad, I have to tell you. I'm with her. No one's with her. All right. Who here would have voted for me to make America great again? You hear that? They're calling me their boo. They love me. They love me. Tremendous, tremendous. You see that? You guys are my approval rating. And I'm doing very well with every demographic. Every demographic I'm doing very well with, especially middle-aged white guys who are overweight who play golf. I'm doing very well with them, I have to tell you. But today isn't about the fantastic job that I'm doing. And I am doing a fantastic job, you have to admit, right? Right? Of course you are. Tremendous job. But since I got here, since I landed on Air Force One, many, many people walk right up to me. They do. They walk right up. And they say, Mr. President, it's time for change. Change in Europe. Change in Europe. Change, change, change. Well, that was used by somebody else who had the job of president before me. You know who it was. You know his name? Yeah, don't say it. It's a rhetorical question. Not a fan. Not a fan. I'm really not a fan. He was a bit more like this crowd today. He was progressive. He was a Democrat. Not really my kind of people, I have to tell you. Now, before speaking here today, I took a look at the sustainability equality. Sustainability equality. What a disaster. Complete disaster. And the worst thing is many, many people think it's going to happen. They think it's going to happen. I don't know. You've even exported these ideas, not the exports that we want. You've even exported these ideas to the U.S. I've seen this. I've witnessed this, actually. I've witnessed this. In 2 cases, I've actually seen this happen. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Alexandria. You act like you know her or something. And Bernie Sanders. Crazy Bernie. Crazy Bernie. And other progressives in the U.S. are starting to talk like you people. Can you believe it? In the U.S., the Democrats are not crazy about me. They're not crazy about me. They're just crazy. They're just crazy. They're just crazy. They want to be more like you. They want to be more democratic. They want to be more socialist. They want to be more concerned about people's feelings. Oh, can you believe it? Can you? Terrible. Absolutely terrible. So let's have a look. Let's have a look at this report. I didn't read it, but let's take a look. Okay, first joke, gender equality. Why? Okay, I love, love, love European women. I do, I must. I married 2 of them. Would you agree? And women love me. Women love me, right, ladies? Right, ladies? They love me. They absolutely love me. Maybe it's because I'm so good looking. Maybe it's because I'm really smart. I'm like a super genius. Or maybe because I'm rich. I'm really, really rich. But equal opportunities, a disaster, a total disaster. The whole world would laugh at you, especially my friends in Saudi Arabia. You know them, they're very rich too. And then the real kicker. Why do you have a problem with most property in the hands of a privileged few? Why? Okay? Sounds good to me. Sounds good to me. And as you know, I'm rich. I'm really, really rich. It's true. I'm so rich. You should see my properties, okay? They're tremendous and very, very tasteful. Very tasteful, very nice, very classy. Now, I am a great, great, great businessman. One of the best ever, I have to tell you. And I am living proof that your ideas don't work. They don't work. I'm sorry, they don't work. Who needs universal health care? Who? When the 0.01% can afford the membership fees to Mar-a-Lago. Am I right? I'm doing very, very well. I'm probably the greatest president in the history of presidents ever. Everyone says so, everybody. So why not learn from me and drop some of your ideas? What do you say, right? Let's make a deal. Because I could not support many of them, especially fighting tax evasion, tax avoidance, and aggressive tax planning. I hate all three of those ideas. I have to tell you, it's pathetic. It's pathetic. How would people like me, brilliant people like me, make brilliant real estate deals and set up an amazing educational institution like Trump University, right? I do like your youth guarantee to help young people to get quality jobs. I think that's very smart. Traineeship or further education. And I think it would be great for Eric and Don Jr. to take advantage of this. They could be here as early as tomorrow. What do you think? We'll do a trade of some kind. And nobody does affordable housing like me. And clean public transportation better than me. Nobody, believe me. And maybe you had something different in mind. I don't know. Also, greening the economy seems like a good idea. You really need more Trump golf courses. Nothing greener than a Trump golf course. Believe me. But if you're meaning to fight climate change, don't do it. It's a hoax. Climate change is a hoax. Everyone says so. Everybody. It's true. It was invented by the Chinese. And China's killing us. They're absolutely killing us in trade. Terrible people, the Chinese. Terrible people. Great takeout. Terrible people. And believe me, take it from me. You do not want free and independent media. It's all fake news. Okay, enemy of the people. Unless they are a certain network named after a certain animal, if you know what I mean. Those people are tremendous. I call into them all the time. They're great. And if anyone tells you different, that is fake news. And by the way, there is a way to tell real news from fake news. If you hear anything bad about me, that's fake news. If you hear anything positive about me, that's real news. It's so simple. And the Mueller report's supposed to drop very soon, and the fake news around the world, they're saying I'm going to get impeached. Not going to happen. And by the way, why a peach? Right? What about an apple or a pear? I'm impaired. I think that makes a lot more sense, don't you think? I have the best words, and I put them in the best order. You have to agree, right? No one does that. All right, back to the report. Jobs. I love jobs. No one loves jobs more than me. Working, not so much. And I love firing people. You're fired. I actually coined that phrase. A lot of people don't know that. And you people, you want to provide better pay and more secure jobs. Ridiculous. Why are you going to do that? Now, you seem to also want to fight those who preach hatred, intolerance, and discrimination against others and defend the rule of law. That's scary, at least for me. I mean, what else am I going to watch on television, okay? And I watch a lot of TV, believe me. And I want to be perfectly clear, you don't need a fair, common asylum and immigration policy. You don't, all right? All you need is a wall. All you need is a tremendous wall, big wall. Just ask my friend Victor in Hungary. Great guy, tremendous guy. Walls work, people, walls work. Walls and wheels work, believe me. Now, your report is sad, it's horrible. So look at my tremendous, rich presidential hand. Take a look, it's huge, by the way, because the face ain't listening. So you want to have the environment, social progress, and economic growth to go hand in hand. That's what you want. Well, I have to tell you, in the U.S., we have not figured it out yet. And we have the best people, top people, number one people. But who knows, maybe you have better people than us, but I doubt it, I have to tell you. Now, I know my speech has been brief. At CPAC, I spoke for 2.5 hours, but I don't think you guys are going to be up for that. But I know it was brief, but I also know it was big league. This was a big league speech because I know the best words, and I put those words in the best order. I really do. So to the incredible women and men of the progressive family, I have only one thing to say. Covfefe. Thank you. You guys were tremendous. Thank you so much. Have a great meeting. Believe me, it's going to be tremendous. Thank you.
I have to say I thank you, President Trump, for bleaching your hair for this. That was beautifully highlighted. That was obviously just for you, ladies and gentlemen. Well, as that certainly got things off to an interesting start, I would say, very enlightening in that very English way. Fabulous. I trust my next speaker is going to take the conversation in another direction. I would hope. So can you give a very, very warm welcome, please, to the S&D Group President, Udo Bullmann. Please join me on the stage. Watch the cable. Thank you.
Dear friends, everybody, thanks for coming this afternoon. First of all, I was questioning myself, what can I do after our program was so perfectly presented by Real Donald. But let me start with wonderful Katrina. I'm not sure, Katrina, that this evening you will get along without a real challenge, because you said you are not a singer. And if you look at Peter and his capacities to convince people, I'm not sure that you will get away without singing tonight.
I can dance.
Dancing, singing. So who would like to see Katrina dancing and singing tonight? Could you?
Okay.
So even if the start was a bit shocking, the finish will be great. I'm pretty sure of that. Dear friends, welcome all of you. It's so good to have you here. It's so good to have this week full of exciting exercises together. We, the Socialists and Democrats, welcome you. We, the Socialists and Democrats, would like to engage with you, not only today, not only this week, but for the next couple of weeks, for the next couple of months, and for longer, You have seen there is a new movement out in the streets of Europe, but also on the globe, everywhere. Fridays for Future. Young people dedicated to tell us that politicians, that the political system cannot afford any longer to gamble with their future. And we say, right. They're on the right ideas. And we should join them. We should go with them to the streets of Europe. We should go with them to the streets of our cities, our municipalities, and worldwide give support. This is what we try to do also in the European Parliament. We invited Greta to speak, together with the Greens, together with the GUE people, and others. And there was a big discussion with the other group leaders. I have to tell you this story because it's very interesting. So the progressive side of the European Parliament was keen to listening to the young people. We wanted to enter into a dialogue. But the right wing, extremists, the conservatives, and the liberals, interesting combination, didn't allow for that. They voted us down. Let's think about majorities for the next time. They voted us down because they were arguing, well, the kids belong to school on Fridays. We cannot support them marching in the streets, and afterwards, for this merit, invite them to speak it's on us to speak in the European Parliament, and it's not on them. Great idea to enter into a dialogue. What we did afterwards, we invited them to our group meetings. 70 young people from all over Europe were coming to our group meeting last Strasbourg week, and were telling their stories, raising their questions, listening to us. And the second speaker, and if you listen to the second speaker, what I heard from him, then you know our program. The second speaker said, a young man, look, are you Social Democrats? Are you socialists? I have a story for you. You are talking about transformation. You are talking about sustainability. You are talking about putting an end to the exploitation of the resources of our planet. But you will tell me why my family, and I'm not coming from a rich family, should not be allowed to have safe energy, renewable energy in the winter. We want to have a warm home. Yes, we agree on your proposals, but we want to have a warm home. And why is not my family able to buy also quality food? Yes, the kids in my family, my brothers and sisters, would like to see quality food, biological, healthy food. But we are not able to doing that. Do you have an answer to that? We agree on your proposals. We agree on your idea of a big transformation. We would like to help. We would like to support you. But are you also going to support us? Do you really mean it? Is it for everybody, what you say? Or is it only for the happy few, what you are talking about? Is it only the greening of the old neoliberal model, where the poorer people were fooled and austerity was for them and the accumulation of richdom was for the others? And here we go. Wonderful Luca, wonderful Paul Nerup, this is your program. This is what you did with all the experts here, wonderful people tonight. We're writing our sustainability report, our report of sustainable equality. It's a new program. It's a new word, sustainable equality. There's two basic ideas. The major idea that we cannot afford to go on exploiting our resources, killing the planet, our soil, our trees, our woods, our water. We want to have the healthy way. But this healthy way has to be for everybody. Has to be for everybody. For the many, not only for the few. Because what we did learn in the labor movement for more than 150 years, we were ready for change. We were mastering change. We were doing that in the first steps of industrialization. We saw Taylorism. We saw the regulation of the working day. We saw public schools. We saw social welfare systems arising. This was trade unions, social democrats doing in their societies. So we are able to master change. But we know also there's only real one source of mastering change. And this source is people. It's not capital. It's people. It's what you have in your dreams, in your mind, in your muscles, in your ideas, in your concepts. Change is about you. Change is about us. And only if we come together, only if we are courageous enough to face the challenges of our world, to be on the ball for the new questions arising, we will do that again. We can do that again. But there is one precondition. Stop being obedient. Stop listening to authorities because they are authorities. Stop behave like cowards, politicians especially, those who lead the big enterprises. Stop behaving as if you never had dreamed of something better. Come together and be courageous to give answers that benefit all in our societies. My dear friends, this is our program. This is our social democratic revolution, which is necessary to be started today, which is necessary to come as a holistic answer to the various challenges we have in the environment, in the economy, in the social cleavages of today. And we gave, in this Socialists and Democrats group, a promise to each other while promoting this new scheme of political program, sustainable equality. We promised to each other we will not talk about economy anymore without talking about the environment. But we will also not talk about the environment anymore without talking about the social dimension and the chances of each and everybody to contribute and to profit from these chances. This is the real difference to Mr. Macron in France, because he is in a learning story. And I would say, yes, okay, lifelong learning for everybody. He is in a learning story because he agreed on changing the conditions of the environment, but he did not agree on changing the social dimension of the society by cutting the taxes for the rich and asking the ordinary people to pay for change. He will fail, my dear friends, he will fail. And this is why we offered him an open hand when he came to Strasbourg. We said, look, you was doing great, defending democracy in France, this big, huge nation we need in the center of Europe. We praise you for that. We would like to have more courageous leaders like you talking about the perspectives of Europe and really also engaging in the debate for institutional reform. But it's about you. You have to decide. Will you help us to build the social fundaments for them, or are you only talking about institutions? Institutions are of relevance, but as instruments. They are not goals in themselves. People, the welfare of people, are our real aim, and institutions are instruments to achieve that. And he has to answer this question very soon, my dear friends. At the end of this electoral campaign, he has to give some answers to that. The same to the Greens. We like many, many elements of the Green program, but they have to respond to us. What are you looking for? Is this the greening of the bourgeois living conditions? Is this the greening of the neighborhoods of the rich? The old history of our industrial socialization told us you cannot make yourself independent from the neighborhoods of the poor people. Your society, your municipality is only flourishing if everybody can participate. Dear Greens, you have to learn that. You started as an anti-authoritarian movement. Please be aware not to become a bourgeois party. So you have to learn also something. And we, the progressives, we, the socialists and democrats, we offer you an open hand as we do to the liberals. And then we have On the other side, our friends from GUE. They are more and more falling apart in two different groups. I cannot see where Mélenchon is a comrade. Mélenchon is turning his historical perspectives into nationalism. This is backward looking. And we owe it to François Mitterrand. He gave it all. Nationalism at the very end means to war. So why do you from the left think that this should be a perspective for you? Don't sell that to the people, dear friends, not after the last century, not after 2 wars of that kind of catastrophe. Please stop the talk on the left about nationalism, about backward-looking nation-states. Open your ideas, open your mindset for Europe, because Europe is the only guarantee that we can achieve something together in the next decades, because we need a strong entity to face international capitalism. But they are not the only ones. They are not the only ones. We also have people that come from trade unions in the left. We talk to them and we encourage them. Come closer. Yeah, join the train. Think about our politics. And if you agree that it's about democracy, if you agree that it's about empowering people and not about old hierarchies, then perhaps we could detect we are one of the kind. Let's talk about it. So we have open hands to many, many, many. We also have open hands to some PPE people who come from a trade union background and understand that we have to stop the urbanization of the People's Party. This is what you see in these days. What did they do with Orban? Did they get rid of him? I couldn't see that. No. They were arranging for new modalities. Well, we look at each other, we are still friends, we are not separated, and perhaps you come back with the respective votes to vote for our candidate, afterwards to become the Commission's president, and then we are friends again. Is this the story they tell us? No, my dear friends. We will not accept this. We will work with people from the PPE. We will work with the trade unionists from their side. But we will stop the urbanization of our societies, because we will not accept this. Look at what he is doing in Hungary, building up new walls, new cleavages in society. Look what the others do, like Austria. It was a shame how the conservative Prime Minister Kurz, Chancellor Kurz, dealt with his period of 6 months where he was leading the European Union. He was, you remember that, sending helicopters, Black Hawk helicopters to the boundaries of Slovenia to fight refugees, to fight migrants who even were not there. It was only a demonstration how stupid can you be and how already right-wing can you be in a country like that. And last but not least, yes, indeed, we made the experience. Somebody representing the European Parliament, the top job, the president, it struck me really, was talking about Mussolini and his merits in Italian history. Did I get it right? The fascists and their merits in Italian history? Is this defendable, my dear friends? No, this is a shame. This is not defendable. And we will stop them during the next couple of weeks and months. We will stop them, because this is not our Europe. This is not our Europe. We know that we have many enemies, internally, externally. But let us, for a second, think about what is going on in London. Tomorrow you will see thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of people again taking the streets of London, making clear that they are Europeans and they would like to fight for Europe because they believe. Brexit was the first test of Steve Bannon and the first test of the far right. Don't think for 1 second that this is only about Brits or about Europeans on the continent. This is about the direction of history, my dear friends. This is about the direction of history. Who is governing globalized capitalism? Do we have multilateral governance, multilateral institutions, democracy, like we build it up in the European Union? Like we would like to support Antonio Guterres in the United Nations? Or do we fall back in the dark ages of nation states and their strength and their imagination of strength, where Mr. Putin on the one side, the Chinese on the other side, and this guy visited us today in Washington, are those who decide our future. This is at stake. And insofar, we are not bored of Brexit. No. We know what it is at stake. And we are in our solidarity with the people in London. We are in solidarity with our friends and comrades in the Labour Party. Please make them strong. And please show in your social media activities, in your press releases, in whatever you do, show them that we are standing by them and standing with them, and that they are not alone when it comes to Saturday and when it comes to the next day. Because the fight they are fighting is our fight. And I still believe that there is a European solution possible to that, but only if we are united, only if we are strong. History is sometimes running quicker. History is sometimes offering you the crossroads. History is sometimes a real challenge. This is what happens now. Quicker, more dense, in accumulating crisis, but accumulating crisis always have the capacity also of positive transformation to the better, if we memory about the values about humankind, if we stick together, if we get our energy together. This is at the very heart of the socialist movement. The only thing we need, stop being obedient and let's become courageous and stay together. Thanks very much for your attention. I will see you dance, and I will see you sing and dance at the very end.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. I think you did extremely well, considering you told me you're not on top form and somewhat unwell. So I think you were a powerhouse. I did like what you said about being able to master change. I'm going to do a quick informal poll in this room. Who feels in these turbulent times, tough times that can bring good things, you said at the end, who feels that we are equipped to master change? I think that's a really nice sentence. Raise your hand if you feel optimistic about it, if you feel positive. Okay, that's about half the room. I think I might get more raised hands now. Who feels they're quite happy to stop being obedient? Oh, okay, about the same. I thought that would be yes, everybody. Okay, and I really liked what you said about institutions as instruments. It's very important. In fact, you're the second person to say that at an event of mine in 7 days, and I think it's a very, very important point to make. It's people. And the institutions need to serve those people and be respected. So thank you so very much. And also thank you for putting those two words into place, sustainable equality, because that's exactly what this next debate is going to explore, how to achieve a Europe of sustainable equality. It's going to be a debate in two parts. The first part brings together 5 speakers, but I'm going to ask 2 of those speakers to come to the floor to headline that debate. The first is Luca Cazzelli, and the second is Paul Rasmussen, and they're both co-chairs of the Independent Commission for Sustainable Equality. Join me. Take a seat just for a moment, both of you. Now, of course, for those I think you probably all know, but Luca is Professor of International Economics and Development at the Department of Economics of the National Kapodistrian University at Athens. She also served as director of the OECD Development Center in Paris, and in the early 90s was economic advisor to the Greek Prime Minister. That's just a few highlights. Doubtless, you are going to set things to rights in terms of that awful trashing of your report that we heard at the beginning. So I look forward to that. And just your colleague on your left, of course, Poul Rasmussen was Prime Minister of Denmark from 1993 to 2001. He was leader of the governing Social Democrats from 1992 to 2002 and an MEP from 2004 to 9. And as I understand it, you pushed for a lot of greater regulation and transparency. That was one of your key areas. So let me invite you first to talk about this report and make us all feel cheerful about it, not trashed. So a warm round of applause, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Great. We have prepared a PowerPoint so that we can share with you some of the suggestions and proposals that the Independent Commission on Sustainable Equality presented and prepared. What is the key message? The key message is, one, that another Europe is necessary and another Europe is feasible. We can do it. Why? Allow me to say a few things about why we need another Europe. The debate and the public dialogue usually centers on the rise of nationalist and far-right parties in Europe. And we see the results here as of September 2018. In many of our countries, nationalist parties have gained more than 20% of the vote. But is this all? No, it's not. What lies behind it is that you have a severe deterioration of living standards across Europe and member states. 118 million European citizens are at risk of poverty. The percentage of workers with incomes below the poverty line rose to 10%. About 1.5 million jobs were lost between 2007 and 2015. Over 18% of young people aged 25 to 29 do not work, do not study, do not attend special training programs. 50 million people are affected by energy poverty, which we heard before. 19% of Europeans are exposed to dangerous suspended particles, and 80% of cases of heart disease, stroke, and lung cancer are associated with air pollution. But it's not only the deterioration of living conditions. We have widespread insecurity throughout our countries. More than 1/3 of Europeans, about 175 million, are experiencing severe financial insecurity. They cannot make ends meet at the end of the month. Almost 40% cannot meet unexpected expenses. About 10% of the European population suffers from food insecurity. And something which is very important, social class mobility is actually lower in Europe than in the United States, something that we did not expect to happen a few years ago. Social inequalities are widening. 20% of the population with the highest disposable income received almost more than 5%, 5 times more income than the 20% of the population with the lowest disposable income. And 5% of Europeans own 40% of total private wealth. The diagram that appears comes from a wonderful book by Branko Milanovic on global inequality. And it shows who has gained and who has lost over the last 20 years from globalization and policies that have been pursued. And what you see in this diagram, which is extremely telling, it's called in the book The Elephant in the Room, is that those who have gained are the middle classes, the lower middle class of the BRICS, of the developed of the emerging economies, China, India, etc. And those who have lost a lot are the ones who fall between the A and the B in the graph, which are the middle class in the OECD countries, in Europe, the United States, in Canada, etc. And who has gained a lot? Those at the far right, the super rich, who have seen their incomes grow tremendously. So what have been the contributing factors behind these problems? The excessive liberalization and deregulation of markets, which started at the end of the 80s. The unregulated globalization, the promotion of neoliberal policies in most of our countries, austerity policies in some of the cases, such as in my own country, Greece, and a dramatic weakening of the social state and social rights across Europe. So it's policies and politics that have brought us to this situation, and the lack of capacity to actually master change, as was said before. So this has brought about a distrust in all our political institutions, and something which is not stressed enough in our view, the fact that you have a concentration of power to large multinationals and especially the financial sector. It's interesting that 147 multinational companies control today about 40% of the world's wealth. And in the past 26 years, only 25 out of more than 6,000 buyout requests have been rejected. Companies have been merging, and huge actors, very powerful actors, have emerged, capturing the political system in many times. So that lies behind the manifestations, the political manifestations that we see today. Is another Europe feasible? In the Independent Commission, we said, yes, it's feasible, but we have to act, we have to be radical, we have to be bold, we have to be innovative. Can we do it? I think we can. We need an alternative vision for Europe. That's the first thing. A vision that goes beyond fiscal consolidation or financial security, and a Europe which aims at well-being for all and not for few. A Europe that is democratic and participatory, a Europe that is just, a Europe that is ecological, therefore a Europe that is sustainable. Sustainability does not only have to do with the environment, sustainability has to do with all three pillars: economic, social, and environment. We don't only need a vision, we need a strategy. And if we want to make a change, to manage change, to reform our societies, we need a clear strategy with bold steps, but proper sequencing of measures. Now, we discussed a lot in the Commission about how to move forward. And what we said was we need to start to be realistic on things that our governments have already committed to. And we already have the Lisbon Strategy of March 2000, where the issue of sustainability was at the center of that agenda. Then at Göteborg and the European Council, this agenda was made much more concrete. And finally, all our governments across Europe signed the Sustainable Development Goals in 2015 and have the responsibility to implement them by 2030. So this is an opportunity. We can take this commitment and link it to actual policies and make change possible. So what is the challenge? Up to now, what do we have? If we try to link the three pillars, the economic, the social, and the environment together. Today we have been talking about the green economy. What is the green economy? It's linking the economy and the environment. But we rarely talk about the social ecological transition, namely the links between social and ecological, and we don't talk much about linking economic and social. So what we need, the challenge of our policy regime change, is to link the three aspects together through specific policy proposals. There are trade-offs there, but we need to address them and find solution, and at the same time that would change governance. So our strategy and our program for well-being for all in a sustainable Europe kind of is built around 5 major pillars, 5 dimensions. And actually, I think this is probably the most innovative part of the report, addressing in a holistic manner the 5 major challenges that we have to face. First, how to give power to the people, empower people, engage our citizens. Secondly, intervene in markets, reshape capitalism, change the way we supervise markets, change the way we regulate markets. Third, provide social justice for all, doing the redistributive policies that need to be done to be able to manage change. Fourth, have a just transition, link social and ecological progress and move forward. And last but not least, change our EU institutions so that change is possible. Allow me very briefly to guide you through these 5 areas. Through 110 implementable policy measures. Power to the people. We're talking about a strong participatory democracy, about transparency, full equality of sexes, independent judicial systems, fight fake news, strengthening trade unions, collective bargaining, and sectoral agreements, and strengthening the role and rights of employees in business. Reshaping capitalism, 2 very important measures among many, many others. Let's have a directive on corporate social responsibility for large business operating in Europe, and a corporate responsibility passport for large companies, so when they come in the EU, they have a very clear set of rules and regulations on what to do. And we are introducing the idea of a European enforcement agency against financial and tax fraud, not only a Europol, but also a financial Europol, if possible. We're talking about digital tax. Google and Amazon do not pay any tax for the time being. We're talking about a financial transactions tax, a European-wide net wealth tax, and proper regulation and supervision of the financial sector, among others. I'm finishing. Social justice for all, the guarantees, the child guarantee, the affordable social and public housing, minimum income, integration policies, and European cohesion policy, changing it. Socio-ecological progress. Here the challenge is to do what we call the just transition. And we're talking about very specific measures that can push this agenda forward. And last but not least, enabling change. I'll come directly to the last slide. Can we do it? Because this is in everyone's mind. Yes, we can. And the proposal, which is an innovative proposal, is to replace the Growth and Stability Pact, which is based on the deficit to GDP ratio or the debt to GDP ratio, by Sustainable Development Pact within the context of a sustainable semester. What does this mean? That we change the measures against which we monitor and evaluate policies of our member states. Rather than looking at only their public deficit or their debt, we can look at their poverty level, at the percentage of people in education, the public investment programs they have, etc. Create a scoreboard and measure progress against a new scoreboard, a scoreboard for a sustainable Europe. So this is the thrust of our report. What is the political message? That Europe, another Europe, is feasible, and this could be an agenda for opening up a discussion across progressive forces in Europe for a fair, sustainable, and democratic Europe. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Come and join me I will give you my chair. Now, normally I would ask you lots of questions, but it's not for me to ask questions. I need to give time to these good people. I'd like to hear from you first, please, but I think what's very interesting is the relationship, because you talked about distrust in institutions and power to the people. And getting that dynamic back on the right track is one of the biggest challenges. So thank you very much for your clarity, very comprehensive. I know you've been a big part of this. What can you add, please, sir? The floor is yours. Thank you.
You know, once upon a time, that was back in the 90s, there were 3 guys gathered in New York. It was President Bill Clinton, right? Imagine he had been here in Brussels, and when I saw one of his followers here a few hours ago, I compared in my inner feelings how people reacted when President Bill Clinton came to the European Parliament. I just tell you, there's a huge difference. There's a huge difference. But he was there in New York in September, I think it was in 1995, together with Antonio Guterres, at that time Prime Minister in Portugal, and together with me, at that time Prime Minister in Denmark. And we began discussing why on earth didn't we form our common actions at a time where we had a huge majority of socialist and social democratic governments all over Europe, and we could make the difference together with Bill. You know, we could do that. Problem, as Bill said, well, you know, guys, at that time we did not have a common strategy. We did not have a common program. We did not have a common agreement on what to do together, not only between Europe and United States of America, but also within Europe. So here we go. If some of you in this moment are asking yourself, Paul and Luca, how on earth do you dream of realizing 110 concrete proposals, which is in the report as Luca presented? And where do we get the majority from, right? My answer is the 1990s. If we have had a program when we had the majority in the 90s, we could act. So guys, we need to start in the right order. First you need the program, and then you create the majority. So that's what we're going to do now. I am old enough now to feel how sick I am of seeing one more time the history repeating itself one after the other. I see that after the financial crisis, did we make all the necessary legislation to ensure that those who have created the financial crisis were those who were responsible to take the damage? No. Are we ready now in European legislation to tackle a new financial crisis? Because I tell you that looking inside the hedge funds and private equity and shadow banks, you will see the bubbles coming up now. You know the answer. We are not at all ready. Do we have decreasing poverty? No, we have increasing poverty. Are there kids who are coming and having a new chance more than in the past? No. There are fewer kids getting their chance in the past. So there's so much to do. I'm sick of acting or lacking acting, and I'm sick of not having a program which I and you and we can convince is the strategy for the next 5 years in the European Parliament and in the European institutions. And that's why we have worked like hell, I tell you. Like hell since April last year until November, December last year, in a very short period, to make this program here. It's not a new independent report. Yes, formally it is. But it's a very, very stringent, precise, and very ambitious program to move Europe and to move the surroundings of ordinary families and people into a better future. I only have one salute to you. Remember what Lucas said. It's like Frank Sinatra, you know, blue-eyed Frankie, right? You know this, dum ba da da dum da 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 da, and so on it goes. Don't take the one without the other, right? Don't take the climate and hope for something coming up on the social. Don't take the social and hope for something coming up in the climate. Take it all, realize it all as a comprehensive, strategical answer to all the changes. And let's break together the passivity of ordinary people saying, it's too big, it's too much, I can't change it. Yes, we can. We can change it together. Now we have the program. Now we only miss, and we will do that to win the next European parliamentary elections. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
4 minutes.
Sorry. Are you competitive? Not. Did you just say 4 minutes? Okay, thank you very much, because actually one of the three that I need to ask on stage has got a train to catch because she is going back to the UK, bless her. So, can I please now invite three others to join us? We have Amy Longland, who is Chief Operating Officer of My Life, My Say. Come. For those of you who don't know My Life, My Say, it's an international youth-led, non-partisan charity whose mission is to empower young people, we can see she's very young, she has no wrinkles, to participate in democracy and ensure that the voice of young people is heard at the heart of the Brexit negotiations. You must be incredibly busy at the moment, I think. Can I also please invite Montserrat Mir, who is of course the Confederal Secretary of the ETUC. And last but by no means least, can I please ask Connie Reuter, who is Secretary General of Solidar, which is of course the European network of CSOs who are working together to advance social justice in Europe and worldwide. So I'm going to come to you first. I think it's the tip of the iceberg. Just say a little bit more about what you do, and what you do, how does it feed into what you heard there? Resonate, how does it all fit together? And you need one of these, my lovely. Oh no, you've got a mic.
I have a microphone. It is wedged onto my ears. Hello everyone. Thank you so much for inviting me to talk today. I'm really honoured. I think it's really, really important that you have diverse people talking about these things, and I'm going to try really hard not to waffle. I'm Chief Operating Officer of My Life, My Say. We're a youth democratic engagement charity based in the UK. A core thing of kind of what we do is we try and reach out to young people who are represented groups who are really disengaged with politics and just don't see politics as a vehicle of addressing their issues, and they feel completely separate from kind of what goes on in Westminster. I mean, I know we all do at the moment, but generally they feel very, very disengaged. The way we do that is predominantly through outreach. So we run democracy cafes, or more recently Brexit cafes, where we bring together young people and get them just to talk about how they feel about Brexit and how they feel about democracy, and try and kind of gather those views and actually give them a space where they feel listened to. And then we try and feed that into parliamentary processes and decision-making through our all-party parliamentary group that we run on a better Brexit for young people. So that's a kind of informal gathering of MPs in Parliament, and we can use those parliamentary processes to advocate for young people. So we kind of gather their views and we feed that into parliamentary processes. We produce 2 reports to the London School of Economics on what young people want to see from Brexit. So, we're really, really proud that most of our events take place outside of London. We've done 11 in Europe as well. And it's really important, I think, and how that ties into, what the report and the Europe Together initiative. It's really important that we're having these conversations, we're getting people together and we're talking about, the issues that affect all of us. I know the EU referendum, and I'm sure you'll agree, Katrina, exposed really deep divisions and inequalities in the UK, be that intergenerational or urban versus rural, or graduates versus non-graduates, and inequalities with that. And people were crying out for a new type of politics, and the EU referendum exposed, and I think since then these have been deepened, these divisions. But not just in the UK, across Europe as well. I think you can see a lot of these divisions and inequality across Europe. And if the EU referendum did one thing, it forced us to take a step back and look at actually, is Europe functioning? Is the EU functioning effectively? Why did all these people vote to leave? And how can we make Europe more accessible to those who don't feel that very connected? So I'm not going to waffle. I'm going to try and keep it quite brief. So I think the 2 pillars of your report, which are really, really important, are the social justice element. I think that's incredibly important, but also I think the most fundamental thing is re-empowering the people. And the democracy cafes that we run and the kind of the events that took place across Europe in the Europe Together initiative, they're a really, really important way of re-empowering those who feel disengaged from the process. And I think once you can bring these divergent groups together and get them talking about these issues, I think that's how, actually have a meaningful input and they're feeling like their voices are going somewhere. I think that is the key thing to kind of going part way in re-establishing, sustainable equality in Europe.
And first of all, thank you for your very, very articulate. Just a very quick question before I move on, because I know I'm going to lose you to the train at some point. Do you feel, I'm here, I'm there regularly, I'm also from London, like Amy, but do you feel that young people have been unfairly criticised for not getting out there enough in terms of, I don't know what it's felt like there for your generation in terms of, come on, why didn't more of you vote?
Yeah, we reject the idea that young people are apathetic about politics. Actually, classical forms of politics aren't really viewed by many young people, especially those from disadvantaged backgrounds, as an actual vehicle to address their issues. So a lot of young people do care about society, do want to get involved in politics, but they don't see, Westminster and voting as an actual viable way of doing so. The EU referendum, if it did one thing, was it did mobilise a lot of young people. It mobilised me, it mobilised a lot of my peers, and I think the key thing now is that we garner that mobilisation, actually listen to the young people that are crying out. We've got the march tomorrow, obviously, as well. Yeah. And the government needs to listen to the people. Otherwise, this mobilisation that's happened, this kind of wave, is just going to end up with a load of young people completely and utterly disillusioned with politics. So this is a kind of, really important time.
And I also think you've put you hit the nail on the head. There was a talk of a need for strategy. You brought these words that come up. There needs to be a strategy for doing something with that listening. It needs to be organised listening, I think. Yeah. Thank you very much. We'll just see. There might be some questions from the floor. Can I turn to you, Montserrat? So I'm trying to link it back to the report because, Amy just talked about two key areas there, social justice and empowering people. And I know that there were some areas that you in particular are very focused on and that you would like to share with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Pleased to be here and pleased to see a lot of young people here. I represent the Trade Union Confederation. Means a lot of millions with a lot of hopes in this new future, in this new possibility of a Europe for all, inclusive. And I have the chance to deal with two topics that now are on the top. And I want to say that climate change and gender equality are two key elements that we need to use in a positive manner. We need to embed in all that means the social dimension. Of course, for us, as a trade unionist, not only the environment is necessary to protect, it's necessary to protect also jobs, to protect respect the human dimension, the social dimension of the climate change. And we have been for a long time fighting. And now we are very happy that the students are in the streets and are supporting us at the same time that we want to support them. We don't want to occupy their space, but we are joining them because they have achieved in a few months, what we have been fighting for years. I remember that when I put in a document to mobilize workers for climate, my colleague says, what's that? What's that? Workers mobilize for jobs, for salaries, but not for climate. And now we see that the impact on jobs, the impact on our society, on our life. Our slogan was, no jobs on a dead planet. That's clear, that we want a clean planet, but we want also the possibility to have a decent life. And with the social dimension means decent jobs. And you must see that far-right parties, because we are now approaching elections, they are very, very touching those two topics, gender equality and climate change. And they are using climate change as a boomerang, and they are saying those unions that are saying that you must protect climate, what they is that you lose your job. They are telling that to the miners, because I have been with the miners in Silesia. I have been with them, and they say to me, you want that I lose my job? No, I want that you have a better job, better life, and healthier life, with more health because your family have these problems. And gender equality, you see in Spain now, this box, that they are attacking all policies, all gender equality policies that we have achieved with years of fight. The first element that they put on the table is a stop all measures, all legislations to help women victims of gender-based violence, and stop all measures that supports policies and investment on gender equality. And it's up to you, and it's up to us to say to the people, to the workers, this is the wrong message, this is the wrong direction, and don't listen those messages, because we see what happens when these people have the power.
Thank you, and thank you. And I liked, because what you also said echoed what Luca had said when you had said there isn't enough of this link between the social and the ecological, and the social and the economic. And do you think, just literally in a nutshell answer, that there is not so much real understanding that everything that we are very afraid of at the moment in terms of climate change, environment, can go hand in hand with, as you said, decent jobs, that transition, you know, isn't to the detriment? Do you think there is or are we not feeling that at people level?
I think that people must be aware that we cannot let no one behind, because the main question when you go to visit those industries, that of course, if we achieve the compromise of the Paris Agreement, they will need reshape, they will need to change. Okay. But we must say to the people, our aim is to put investment, tax, and all the measures that we need to have this transition a reality. Okay. And this transition must be just. And I must remind one thing, in the Paris Agreement, the big fight of the unions was to include the just transition as an article, Article 2. We failed, but we include in the preamble, and now we are showing that was necessary and was good, and we were in the good direction proposing this just transition.
Okay, so we're talking about, we hear about just transition, we hear about people at the heart, we heard from Udo at the beginning, and I think you want to focus a little bit on this also, I think, that he spoke about no one being left behind. We hear this a lot. So what do you want to say specifically on that and on the role of civil society?
Well, the role of civil society, first of all, the good news was it created us some work because we could contribute to the report, and I think it was really time. Because we were always, in particular in Brussels, we ran behind agendas, and we are not the trendsetter, not the agenda setter. And I think now with what is on the table, there is a possibility, there's something which is not yet as concrete enough with the 110 proposals, but at least it can make the difference. And where do we have to make the difference? You are putting reshaping capitalism. It is clear if it's only the short-term profit, it is not a long-term investment, if it's not a change in production schemes, then it is very clear that this will not work. We went with Maria Arena, we went to Ghana some months ago, and what could we see? It's the biggest trash hole that could you see in Ghana with the trash we send from Europe. This is not sustainable anymore. This needs to change. And this is a fight that we have to have at the global level. And when we say power to the people, I hope that all of you Google from time to time and look who is singing that song on Power to the People. It is Patti Smith, and you should listen to it, because this song from Patti Smith should give you the energy. Why I'm saying power to the people? People empowering is a process, and civil society, like unions, we gather citizens. You gather workers, we gather citizens who are also workers. And we have to create the sensitiveness that this system cannot go on anymore. And the problem is, the majority is not yet with us, because in the mindsets there is this ideological pollution from Trump company and others who say, if you have a difficulty, your problem. If you fail, it's your problem. If you win, it's your success. No, we need enabling societies with equality, with measures that help people to get out and back into the social elevator. When my parents would still live, they would tell me, and I could tell them, today I would not be able to do what I did 40 years ago when I was studying. And I think this is very much what needs to change. And when we think also on reshaping capitalism, we have to end this idea on too big to fail. And we have to end this idea also to say that investment is only short-term. No, it needs to be long-term. That's something that pays off. And when we heard that we need fiscal consolidation after the crisis, no, we need social consolidation and social investment, and this is absolutely possible, but these are political and economic choices, and for this we need a majority, and for this we need an alliance with the progressive politicians, with the unions, and civil society. Simple as that.
And just when you just briefly, and then I see if there's anything that comes from you from the floor. Just I don't wish to misquote you, but you were talking about, you know, the financial crisis, and there hasn't really been actually that correct level of accountability. And I just ask, I mean, absolutely everyone is together. Absolutely we need to master change. Do you feel positive that people can do it? Because we can see what's wrong, but sometimes we're all terribly frustrated because those who are responsible for not very nice things aren't being held accountable. Do you feel that we are moving in the right direction?
Well, the political majority is not there, and this is a debate we need to have, for example, with Greta and all the others who are in the street. Because what is Greta saying? Greta says we cannot trust anymore the politicians, and she doesn't make any difference between the politicians. She says we have to trust the scientific world, but in the scientific world we have also negationists of climate change, so it does not work. So it is up to us to do something which in good French we call éducation populaire. That means we have to fight for the minds and to convince them. And what we should understand is, like we have been, people like me, we have been demonstrating against the nuclear power plants 40 years ago. We have been in many demonstrations on the peace movement and others, in civic disobedience movement. The power and the energy that the young people have today, this also needs to be sustainable, and not only in terms of translation into votes, but of the readiness to fight. And think on Stéphane Hessel, the famous Stéphane Hessel from France. What did he say? Indignez-vous. Indignez-vous against this kind of system that it works. It gives you enough power not only to drink and to dance tonight, but to continue the fight. And it's not only by winning the elections, but also and foremost by winning elections.
Thank you. I've been given very clear Indian smoke signals, so I'm going to release from this debate because I've gone a little bit over time. And I hope that all of you will be around for the reception. You two are going to be coming back shortly. But I thank you very, very much. You may take your seats. I'm going to move on, and I'm going to try and take questions a little bit later on. So, thank you very much. We're now going to have some more food for thought on the door that was opened there by Montserrat, because we're going to have a little bit more detail on gender equality. And I would like you to please give a very, very warm round of applause now to an S&D MEP, Marina Arena, who is going to come and address you. Welcome. Do you all know who she is? You can say a little bit more about your day job, because you've got can you, about no more than 10 minutes, can I rely upon you for that?
Yeah, I will try
Thank
to.
you.
If
Please.
I may, I will speak in French, because I know that I know that 2 days ago it was the International Day of French speaking, so I think it's necessary to be proud of having different languages here in Europe. So I will do it in French. Take your, so voilà, moi c'est.
My name is Maria Reina. I am a member of the European Parliament. This is my first term of office in the European Parliament. Beforehand, I was involved in politics in Belgium. I was fortunate to work on issues of education, vocational training, pensions, welcoming refugees. So my work in Belgium was focused on tackling injustice, an injustice that we see right around Europe, in particular inequality, gender inequality. Women account for 50% of the population, and yet we are still deemed a minority because we are mistreated. 1 in 3 women in Europe suffer as a result of violence in Europe today. Very often that is violence in the home, violence carried out by a spouse. We have discrimination linked to pay, employment. Female migrants in particular suffer from discrimination. Women in politics face discrimination. Women suffer because they face an attempt to dominate them, and we need to fight back against that discrimination. In the capitalist system, I think we can see the root causes. So this is really at the heart of the progressive fight. In the S&D, we have spent considerable time working on this. I'd like to thank Iratxe, who is our coordinator within the S&D group. We have fought back against discrimination. We secured a directive on work-life balance to ensure that men and women can better reconcile work and family life, rather than sticking with traditional family roles, women in the home, men out earning a living. Women are more than mothers and homekeepers. Directive has been adopted thanks to the S&D to ensure that men can enjoy 10 days of paternity leave. That's paid paternity leave. Parental leave is also an option for men too, and that would not be transferred to the female partner. This is a directive that really represents social progress. It is part of the social pillar in Europe. I would like to thank the Socialist members of the Council for their assistance. Nicola Schmidt is here with us today. He worked extensively with us to ensure that this directive was not held up in Council. Who was blocking progress here? Well, those that claim to be a European progressive feminist. For example, Mr. Macron, he clearly stated that he didn't want this directive to see the light of day because it would cost companies money. Ensuring rights for women, men, workers, enabling them to better reconcile work and family life, all that costs money, that is true, but we believe that this is an investment. It affords everyone an opportunity to ensure their personal growth and development. We also worked on legislation dealing with abortion. It is under threat in those countries where there is a right for abortion, and it's also under threat in those countries where abortion rights are severely restricted. For example, Poland. There's a real issue there for us. As socialists, as progressives, this is a right. Women have the right to decide how they deal with issues relating to their own body. We were involved in the Black protests. I'd like to thank our Polish colleagues for being with us today. We were involved in that campaign. Our Polish friends, Polish women need our assistance. Likewise for the Spanish women combating Vox, Irish women likewise. All women need to have a right to high quality care when they have taken a decision for themselves. They have a right to a healthy, safe abortion. The right to decide on their reproductive rights. So women's rights in Europe, that's a key issue, but we also need to look at women's rights beyond our borders. Women's rights are fundamental rights. We need to defend women around the world, in Africa and elsewhere. Recently, I traveled to Nigeria. We looked at the issue of women kidnapped by Boko Haram, quite simply, for no other reason than the fact that they were in education. We want to ensure that women around the world can live in dignity.
If I might ask you one question, actually, and you know, these conversations, I mean, you are talking about two issues that are very hot. We just heard that from Montserrat: climate, gender equality. Looking at it simplistically, you've had the Me Too movement. You have a lot of companies engaging in equality. But do you still find you fight to get the conversation out there, that you have to frame it in the right way in order to be, oh, not that subject again, or the climate is changing?
Alors c'est compliqué. Moi,
It's a little complicated. I was delighted to see the Me Too movement emerge. Finally, women were coming forward and saying things they wouldn't have dared to say 10 years ago, even women that considered themselves feminists felt that it would be awkward to raise in public this type of behavior that we'd seen with some men. Now, women, when you are harassed, when you are poorly treated, when you are raped, you are deeply affected. How do you explain that in public? It is extremely complicated to have that conversation, and so women need support to come forward. In the European Parliament, Edouard Martin, a man, supported a Me Too movement within the European Parliament. This emerged from the S&D group. There is no sector where you don't find this type of harassment. It cuts right across all fields, including politics. Even amongst our own colleagues, this type of harassment may take place. So as S&D members, we need to have these conversations. Things are changing, that is true. They are changing in Europe. That is why Conservatives are becoming more radical, because they see that the times are changing. And when things change, people batten down the hatches. That is when we need to stand up and be stronger. We need to put in place mechanisms to allow people to come forward.
Bring men along for the ride. Don't keep them out of the conversation. It's absolutely
exactly. We
absolutely
need a man. I think it's really an inclusive way of doing things. This is not women against men. We are doing things together. So we need these men.
Yeah, he's looking at you, actually, just you, Paul. Okay. I am going to release you because I need to keep things in a good timing to let these people go and let off some steam on a sunny day and a Friday evening.
Thanks.
But can I give a very, very warm round of applause to such a passionate, committed speaker? Thank you so very much.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, so lots of food for thought there. Now, for something, and yes, thank you very much. I did get the messages that somebody needs to come on stage and change water. That's all good. So now for something completely different, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to have a musical interlude. So I'd like you to give a very warm welcome to a Belgian singer and musician from the south of Morocco, Mousta Largo. Bravo. Now, I think first of all, sir, you would like to say a few words when you've set up, am I right? Or you have your own microphone. You're perfect. Thank you.
Je vais vous parler en arabe. Alors, chers amis, qu'est-ce qu'une société?
Dear friends, what's a progressive society? I don't know. But I do know 3 years ago, my country, Belgium, was the victim of terrorist attacks. And we've seen other terrorist attacks elsewhere in New Zealand only the other day. And that reminds us that democracy is not well. And it needs help, and it doesn't need extremists. And there are populists out there on the extreme right. And that reminds me of Europe a long, long time ago. In the south of Spain, there was a place called El Andalus, Andalusia. And in the little streets of Cordoba, there was a Jew, a philosopher, called Ranran Rambrumit, an Arab philosopher, Averroes. And Ibn Rushd said, this was in the 2nd century, even before Mélenchon, he said, ignorance leads to fear, fear leads to hate, and hate leads to violence. And that was the equation then. And I hope to do the reverse journey. This is Ilma Badan from Andalusia, and that is the Jewish, Christian, Muslim communities down there. from the start really of the Reconquista in Andalusia.
Thank you. Dans quelques mois, vous allez toutes.
In a few months, you're all going to be down by the seaside, in your swimming trunks and your bikinis, and after the winter, you're supposed to get back into summer shape. And what better than belly dancing to help you there, to lose a couple of kilos. Let's do it now.
Il faut pas taper dans la main, il faut se lever.
No, I wasn't saying clap. I was saying stand up, so we can all do it together. Oh, they've started down here already. Well done.
For the dance oriental, it's very easy. 2 hands above. Un peu comme Jésus-Christ, mais comme on est démocrates.
A bit like Jesus Christ, but with differences. And with your hips, do this. Looks a bit like this. 1, 2. Okay? Let's go.
Et ceux qui dansent pas. وشحال مدموع منو سالو يا ابو عادل وكي دمع تنسى يا ابو عادل وما فهمتي ما سمعتي بكلام الحرة ما شجعتي ما دفتي بكلام الحرة Alors celle qui est quand même la fer de lance, qui est mon amie
Anna Colombo's here, and she's a great dancer, Anna Maria, and my very, very good friend. All three of them take you back to this idea. Italy has also had its resistance.
Mi sono alzato, oh bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao. Questa mattina mi sono alzato e ho trovato l'invaso. Oh partigiano, portami via, oh bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao, ciao. Partigiano, mi sento di morire e se muoio da partigiano, oh bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao, ciao. E se muoio da partigiano sotto l'ombra di un bella fiore, e questi fiori da partigiano, oh bella. E questi fiori da partigiano sotto l'ombra di un bella fiore. I regenti ci penseranno, oh bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao, ciao. E i regenti ci penseranno, che diranno c'è bella fiore. E questi fiori da partigiano, oh bella ciao, bella ciao. Thank you, Mohamed, Ahmed, Musta. مع السلامة.
Thank you so very much. You have made these people very joyful, which is great. And I have to say, when I moderate for the Commission, we don't have that level of entertainment. That is for sure, really. Okay, so, bit tricky for the next three of you to come on stage and follow that. You may have to sing your contributions. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I promise you we're on the home stretch, but please do stay with us because we've got some fine people who are just going to say a few words on all these big issues at stake from their perspective. So can you please welcome for the second part of the debate on achieving a Europe of sustainable equality, Nadia Emesic. Please come forward for the Youth for Gender Equality Forum. This lovely lady is a young law student. Please sit, from Slovenia. She's an active member of the Women's Forum for Social Democrats and the Young Forum of Social Democrats in Slovenia, and you're a very brilliant political campaign advisor. I'm saying you're very brilliant, you must be. Nicola Schmidt, where are you, please, sir? Former Minister of Labour, Employment and the Social Economy, member of the ICSC in Luxembourg, so please take a seat wherever you would like, sir. He asked me for blue lipstick at the start of this event. I'm just telling you that, but he's not wearing it. Okay, but I'm just spilling the beans. And please also welcome, it's very, very delightful, Polish human rights lawyer and activist, Dr. Krzysztof Śmiszek of the Social Democratic and Pro-European political party, Wiosna in Poland. So, thank you. Let's keep this nice and short and sweet and elevator pitch style because you're three dynamos. I can see it, but ladies first. And youth first. Ladies and youth first. So let's hear your thoughts. You heard a lot from our first panelists, and I know you've got some particular passions of yourself around gender equality, youth participation. So please take the floor for 3 or 4 minutes and let us know your thoughts and your passions. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for being here. I'm really pleased. As we heard before, we can often hear that young people are inactive and don't want to be political, activists. But as we saw last week with environmental protests, we show that we do care, we want to make a change, and we also want to be an active part of it. We don't just want to look, we want to act. As a social democrat, I believe that there are two aspects of the sustainable equality that need to be addressed urgently, and it affects youth in a big way, and those are gender equality, of course, and ending of poverty. So we also heard at the presentation that almost 25% of the whole population of the European Union is at risk of poverty or social exclusion. So this is a problem we have to tackle seriously. We have to lower the number of people at risk of poverty by 25 million% till the 2030. So this is a huge challenge we have to tackle. Otherwise, I believe that when we are writing social policies, we must not forget the minorities, the groups that are easily affected if we make a big mistake when writing those. So I would like to emphasize that these groups are, of course, migrant people, women, LGBTQ+ people, and we have to bear in mind that we have to also take care of those people that we normally don't encounter in everyday life, but they are still present and there. So we have to make something that we don't have to face the collapse of democracy.
And can I just ask you, because we are in a European context, and if you have a wish, because we talked about, you know, we need a new vision and a strategy, and do you feel supported at I'm not even talking youth, but youth in a member state? Do you think there is that European support there? But if you had an ask, how would you channel that ask?
I think there's always a way. You can be active in your local local area, grassroots campaigning. But if you have a bigger idea you want to achieve on like an international level, European level, I think there's always a way you contact your MIP, your MP at home, and I think they're always willing to hear some good ideas. So I believe there is always an option. We shouldn't make excuses when it comes to changing our life and our future.
And certainly a part of restoring the distrust. There is a dynamic there, and it needs to also come from grassroots up. Okay, so thank you very much. I come to you, sir. We've heard a lot of different ideas and thoughts. What resonates for you, or what didn't you hear and you would like to share with us, please?
Well, I think what we have done together with Paul and Luca, and Paul has said it, we have worked a lot on this project, was to open a totally different perspective. And I think when I started, at least, I didn't know exactly where we would end. And today, when I look at it, I say, well, this is really the plan, it's the project for our time. I tell you a story. I have a 15-year-old girl, daughter, and she went on this protest march last Friday. And when she came back, she said, you know, I really am very scared what will happen. And I have the impression that you politicians, you do not really do enough. So I tried to explain her about our project. It was a bit difficult. But I think we have really to take serious the fears and the commitments and the engagement of the young generation. And when we say shaping our society and shaping the future, that really means that from yesterday on, not today, or at least today on, we have, as politicians, as all the actors, trade unionists, and as actors of civil society, and all citizens, we have really to mobilize to shape a different future for our kids, for the forthcoming generation. We are talking so much about forthcoming generation, but we have the responsibility to give to them a planet where they can live and where the forthcoming generation can live. And I think this message is crucial. And this is very concrete. We have really to shape, and this is something very craftsman shape. We have really, as politicians, to do that.
And you, yep, please. I said applaud at will. And just very, very quickly, you said it's very concrete, but to get really, really concrete, there are still those frustrations out there. There are still this call. Anything that you think is just not being done, you know, when your daughter says to you, come on, politicians aren't doing enough. If there was one thing you think could change,
yes, I think we are too cautious. We have not always the courage we need as politicians. We are always looking for some kind of compromises because we fear not to hurt this group or that group. What is so important in this project, Luca and Paul presented, is that we clearly say it has to be a bold change. It has to be a big change. It has to be a courageous change. Otherwise, it will not really bring us a better future. Okay. We cannot work at the margins. We have to go into the heart of the problem. Because what is at stake, and time, the clock is really ticking. The clock is ticking. Because 10, 15, 20 years, very short time. So we have really to start. And this is what the message we want to convey. And this is what all those who are running for the election now, on the 26th or 25th, all those who are running for the election, they have to take the clear commitment that they will fight for it and really commit to it and commit on their own.
Okay, so yes, thank you. So you talk commitment, courage, boldness. So I come to you, sir. I think those are probably some qualities you must have. I don't know you. And I know you want to say something on gender equality and economic inequality and the link between the two. You wanted to expand on that a little bit. Please share. Thank you.
Thank you. Is it
can we
working?
hear?
No?
We can hear you.
Okay. So thank you for having me here, and thank you for this great event. Well, just a few words about myself. For the last 15 years, I was a human rights lawyer, human rights activist. And a few months ago, I decided to join politics because I came to this conclusion that if you want to shape your society, you have to be in politics. Well, in the last 15 years in my professional career, I met too many women, for example, victims of domestic violence, who were forced to live with the perpetrator of the domestic violence simply because they had no money, they had no resources to go away. I saw too many cases and I met too many women who were victims of discrimination, victims of violence, who were too poor to afford for a lawyer to be protected, to go to the court and to be protected by the state. I saw too many women who actually suffered in terms of their health status simply because my state did not invest enough money to protect their health sufficiently. Can you imagine that Poland is one of the rare countries, rare examples in Europe that where foreign medicine students, mostly from Scandinavia, they go to Poland to see for their own eyes the uterus cancer, which is size of an apple. In Scandinavia, you cannot see this kind of diseases anymore. Poland, 2,000 women per year, they suffer from simply because the state did not care about their health. So that's why I decided to join politics. That's why I think that progressive people have to invest energy and emotions to convince states, convince European Union institutions to join the Council of Europe Domestic Violence Convention, to force the institutions to invest more resources to make everyday life of women better. So this is me. This is my motivation to be in the politics.
Thank you very much. And just very stark example there, but very much, you know, you brought forward very important words, which is care. I'm a bit obsessed about that, and that requires both energy and certainly emotion.
But there is optimism as well.
And optimism, yes.
Yeah, there is an optimism as well. 2 years ago, Poland and whole Europe witnessed huge mobilization of women who gathered on the streets. They organized so-called black protests against conservative and populist attempts to restrict abortion laws. So that's why I believe in social emotions. That's why I believe that the change will be brought by women and also by men who support women. And I refer to the words of Maria Arena.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. Anything, because you've been so patient, and I know that you probably need to have some liquid sustenance and some air, but does anybody have anything a question or a comment? No? Yes, this gentleman. Hang on, I think you need a microphone, which you might need from me, actually. I don't know if there's anybody. Oh, you have? Okay. Do say who you are and kindly keep it delightfully concise. Thank you very much. Are you on?
Do you hear me?
Yeah. Oh, yes.
So, first, before I begin my question, is it a question to these panelists or the previous ones?
Well, if the previous ones, you are welcome. Just whatever you do, you are welcome for the previous ones. Yeah, this is a free-for-all. Go for it.
Okay, great. So, my name is Robin, and I'm a Chief Sustainability Officer from Sweden. I work in Sweden in a real estate company. And I want to point out that today we live in a global economy where profits are privatized, where we collectivize costs and individualize solutions when it comes to social and environmental problems and needs. What capitalism is today is a never-ending accumulation of wealth created from exploitation and deterioration of nature and human capital. I want to direct this following question to everyone, but especially the labor unions. We need to close coal plants now. We need to stop other types of exploiting forms of production around the world now. We need to mobilize workers now. Are the trade unions ready to put together a European Green Strike Fund to help workers drop their jobs and start their transition into a circular economy and force companies to do the same?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So, I think you... Okay, hang on. Yes, you need a microphone too. I'm not sure there's... you have. Fabulous. Okay, again, ladies and gentlemen, don't shoot the messenger, but as concise as you can. Thank you. You good? Are you on?
Well,
oh, yep.
Thank
Okay.
you. I would like to thank you to all of you. I'm Renato Salustio. I come from Charleroi in Belgium, and I'm ambassador from the Europe Together today. Je m'exprimerai en français une fois n'est pas coutume.
In French, since we have interpretation. It's a comment or a question? Another question. It's a very straightforward question. Have we forgotten that for almost 50 years, citizens, through their representatives, were writing lists of human rights, for example, conventions on safeguarding individual rights and the social charter, and those are the keystone of democracy. They're lists of human rights, fundamental rights, social rights, and not just in the European Union, worldwide, because many countries, Mexico, the US, even the Vatican, have also signed up as observers. And I think those are the rights, and why do we not make sure that rights of that kind are binding, because we're not the only ones who've got a monopoly on rights.
For reasons of time, do I get the okay? Did you want to to come back, and then I will come to you guys for the first question in terms of, are the trade unions ready to help this transition to a circular economy? I'm taking the very end of that very eloquent intervention. Yes, thank you.
Yes, of course, but you must take into account, of course, we are leading this idea from long time ago, years and years that the trade union movement is fighting for that. We have been the promoters of the Just Transition Fund. That was a nice and good idea that was accepted by the Parliament, supported by the Parliament, and rejected by the member states and the Commission, that they say was too bad to create a mosaic of funds. Now we have a Just Transition Fund with the limited resources, I must say. It was not the fund that we have promoted. We have promoted this kind of fund in the framework of the ETS reform. Was a very good idea, but of course, between our members, we have a diversity. It's not the same a trade union in Poland that is working in the mine and is watching how the future will change. It's not the same as a Nordic, for example, worker or Spanish worker now that have seen a good deal to close finally all mines in Spain with a good deal, with a good financial support and good social protection for the workers. That is what we want. We want to put on the table all the resources to give the workers the opportunity for a just transition.
Okay. Thank you. Can you pass the microphone to this gentleman, and then I will come to you, Christoph. Just one. Oh, you have still. Great.
Guys, it's not the trade union who have to pay for the transition. I mean, listen, we could not ask the Polish workers to finance a fair transition from giving up coal to obtain a climate-friendly development in Poland. That would not be fair. We have to finance it all. But Robin, what would be fair? That would be that those in the financial sector who have created this crisis we're still up to, with all its unemployment in the southern part of Europe, half of Europe, they have to finance a new green foundation to ensure that before we start the transition from a coal-based economy, an oil-based economy, to a eternal clean economy, before we're doing that, we should have a very trustworthy plan which tells every Polish worker and every German worker and every worker who deals with coal and oil, listen guys, we are on your side, and we will ensure that when we close down all these polluting mechanisms, there'll be new jobs for you. It's a guarantee, because we have planned and decided and financed it on beforehand, right? And do you know who's going to finance that? It's going to be the financial sector. We are proposing a financial transaction tax. We are proposing that the whitewashing of money and the tax havens should be closed. We are proposing a common wealth tax, which will, if we put it together, ensure a sufficient financing. And now, at the end, you ask for the private sector. When we talk about big business and climate change and social fairness, even in Davos, they think that inequality is becoming a problem now. And they talk friendly to me and others. Yes, we're going to do something about it. But we have seen them trying to do something about it in more than 10 years. Now, in this report, we are proposing a very concrete thing, which has to do with power, with regulation, and with sanctions. What we're saying is that every big multinational corporation which is operating in Europe with a turnover of more than 1 billion euros should be obliged to have a passport to operate on the single market. And this passport should be a set of claims that you fulfill the climate change, that you treat your workers orderly according to the trade unions, that you fulfill your economic investments obligation, that you pay your taxes. And I can tell you, they are so eager to stay in the single market, which is the biggest economy in the world, that with these claims, they will not smile, but they will fulfill them if you have the power and say, otherwise, you have to stay aware and there will be no
Paul,
profits.
can I ask you to wind up? Sorry, thank you very much.
I have round up.
I know. Thank you. It's difficult behind. Okay. A word from you. You wanted to come in. A last word from you, I think, for this gentleman, and then I will wrap this debate, because we've got the youngest people in the room who are very important, who I'm waiting to talk to. Yes, that's you two on the front row. Thank you. You've been most patient. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Just one sentence answering your question. Well, I'm a human rights lecturer, and I always teach my students that there are no generations of human rights, because the traditional way of teaching human rights is that you have first generation human rights that are obligatory, and second generation, the social rights are optional. No, they are not. They are interrelated, and they cannot exist without each other.
Did you want to add anything? Oh.
My mic doesn't.
Yeah, you're on.
Yes, I think there has been some progress. Nevertheless, we have to admit, our movement has succeeded in enforcing a certain number of rights, included in the different social charters and conventions. Now we have pushed for the social pillar. This is very practical, very policy focused. And this is now the big challenge, that for the new social issues, we have to bring the right solutions. And this is also a challenge for the next parliament, for the next commission, that we really have to give a clear message to European citizens that Europe is social. I do not say socialist, but social. Europe has to be social, because if Europe does not manage to be social, I must say I'm very pessimistic for the future of that Europe, and we will be taken over by the populists. So I think there is still a lot to do. We have made some progress, but we have now new instruments, and we can progress. I have just one remark on circular economy. You know that the ILO has calculated that if we add 5% to recycling, wood, natural resources, and all kinds of stuff, plastic is a big issue, we can create about, I think, 5 or 6 million jobs. 6 million jobs where people can work and we protect our natural environment. So this is not something irrealistic. This is very practical. We have to find the investment to create these jobs and to save our planet.
Thank you very much. I asked if you wanted to say a last word. Is there anything
I would
want your fellow young people to
Yeah,
take
I
away?
would like to encourage you all. I know you're all active already because you are sitting here and listening and participating, but I would also like to emphasize women, act, get into politics. We need you and we have to support each other, so women go into politics. That's all.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Can you give these three lovely people a very warm round of applause, please? You've got the toughest slot right near the end. You may take your seats. Thank you for being here. Thank you so very much. So, you may go. My lipstick is in my bag at the back. You will send me, okay. So, thank you so much. I've got two lovely people who are about to come onto the stage with me, graduates of the School of Democracy. So hands up if you're in the School of Democracy. This week you all know what it's about. Loving your style, by the way, the lady on the end. It's completely fabulous. So, the School of Democracy graduates, 5th edition, as I understand it. Got some fabulous, passionate young people from all 28 member states. You had some debates with intellectual and political leaders. I've got two graduates. Are you from the previous 4 years, you two lovely people? Come and explain. Can you give a very, very warm welcome to Yande Chilufya. She's from Zambia, but she was brought up in the UK like my good self. And also Emmanuel de Caudin, who I think you can tell by my fabulous accent is French, but he was brought up in the USA. Now, as I understand it, you took part in, I think, 10 workshops, 2 plenary sessions, of which there was the future of democracy and sustainable development. And then there were lots of rapporteurs in those sessions, I think 10, but you two have been selected to be together ambassadors, and you're just going to share with us some of the highlights from those sessions in your own very eloquent words. Ladies first.
Sure. I think it's quite a huge ask to summarize everything, and I hope I do you justice. And I'll try to be brief because I know we're pushed for time. But firstly, I'd just like to say thank you to the S&D group for organizing this reunion of the graduates of democracy. I think it's absolutely essential that we continue to galvanize young people and people who are doing the grassroots work. So I think this has been a great initiative. As for my summary of the workshops that we actually did, I think broadly speaking, the workshops fell under one single theme, and that is ameliorating the injustices of a market economy that is not working, that doesn't respect human dignity, that doesn't respect the rights of people in the global south, that is creating deep-set inequalities and challenges both within Europe and also beyond Europe's borders. And so one of the things that we were discussing is trying to move beyond GDP. And we were trying to understand, how do we measure social progress? Because I'm sure everybody in this room kind of has a broad understanding of how, economists define social progress, and that's through GDP. We try to hit the 3% mark, and if that isn't working, and if economies are stagnating, that is a serious problem. But actually, what about the broader challenges of society that we're not measuring? So right now, Europe has a loneliness crisis. If you come to the UK, the late Jo Cox, she started a loneliness commission because people are fundamentally unhappy. We have challenges of social connection. We have challenges of deep-set inequality. In Europe, in 2019, there are children who are going to school hungry. And in the United Kingdom, this problem is particularly pronounced, and we're very passionate about it. And even speaking about it from an environmental perspective, the UN Environmental Agency says that we have 60 years of good harvests left before the planet is threatened with serious food insecurity. So I think these were the kind of broad challenges that we were discussing under the problem of GDP, and we explored alternative measures, so everything from the Gini coefficient to looking at how we measure biodiversity and even actually happiness, because what is happiness and how do you measure happiness? So then went on to talk about a just transition for all. So we understand that we want to move towards a greener and more fair society, but who pays for it? Who foots the bill? And I think, as Paul said, obviously we want to emphasize that it's the multinational corporations who own 40% of global wealth. It's the multinational corporations who are primarily responsible for polluting. So we just wanted to emphasize as graduates of democracy that we need to hold them accountable. And I think it's important as well to emphasize that it's not just about accountability, because sometimes it can turn into greenwashing. And I think this is also, it's a human rights issue beyond the borders of Europe, and we need to be quite outward looking in looking at a just transition for all, because when we understand what is going on in the global south, I mentioned this a few days ago, 1,000 people in Mozambique died. And those are the consequences of what these multinational corporations are doing. And we need absolutely to develop policy interventions that address these issues. And we very much, as graduates of democracy, we welcome the interventions in the book. And I think going...
Can you do a last... I'm just giving...
Oh, sorry.
I feel like we're a breather, and then I can come to you, and then if we've got any questions...
Yeah, sure.
So can you wind up?
And then...
Thank you.
Sorry, I know
Don't
I said I'd
say-
be brief.
don't
It's
say
really
sorry.
difficult,
No,
actually, up
sorry.
here to just
No, sorry
say it all
needed.
very shortly. So, yeah, no. Ultimately, we need to move towards a greener and fairer society. And as graduates of democracy, we want to emphasize that as people on the ground, we are committed to helping the S&D put this program through. But it has to be feminist. It has to respect human dignity. It has to respect the rights of people in the global south. And I'll end it here because I know you're trying. Yeah,
No,
sorry.
do you know, it's the worst part of my job. Thank you. It's the most awful part of any moderator's job, because you're simply chock-a-block with fabulous people like your good self. But I also thank you very much, because actually I think you're the first person this evening to have actually used the word dignity, and it's very, very important, and you used it more than once. So, and that is so much at the core of all of this. So thank you for that. What can you add? This tremendous lady has been very, very eloquent and coherent. I am now waiting for you to be as eloquent and coherent. No
Well,
pressure.
To start, want to say I'm very honored to be here, not just representing France, but also unofficially our friends from across the Atlantic, and not particularly the one that we saw earlier today. This workshop has really been eye-opening in terms of both the challenges we face as socialists and progressives, as to the democratic deficit and the decline in democracy in certain European countries that we're facing, but also in terms of the enthusiasm of young people, the willingness and courageousness of our leaders, both in the S&D and in the academic and business sphere, in being willing to tackle this issue, not just in a way that we've been trying for a very long time, but in new and innovative and imaginative ways that will not only just address this issue by itself, but also be intersectional with the issues that are facing women, that are facing ethnic and racial minorities, that are facing gender and sexual minorities, and that are facing even non-Europeans, like my colleague mentioned, in the global south and in other parts of the world. We discussed the difference between the illiberal nature of the democracies in Hungary and Poland. We discussed whether or not it was even appropriate to call those nations democracies at this point. We also discussed the democratic deficit that we're seeing back in Western European countries and in the EU as a whole. The people themselves, their wills are not being reflected at the decision-making process, either because of the lack of the will of the political parties or because the institutions themselves, the most democratic institutions such as the Parliament, are being overridden by institutions such as the Council and the Commission. And what I feel that I've discovered throughout this process is that we really need to look beyond just the institutional, such as the means to be able to vote and the pathways for citizen engagement to change decision-making, and as well as the civil liberties that are on the decline in countries such as Hungary and Poland, and look at the substance of democracy, citizen participation. They're feeling that on an emotional level and an affective level, that their voices are being heard in the institutions, in the decision-making process, and move beyond just looking at the very important elections that are coming up, beyond just looking at the policies that we're able to pass as a group in the Parliament, and look at building a long-term, a sustainable method of engaging people on a grassroots level. And I think that we have a lot to learn from the United States and movements on the left, such as Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who has been very effective at engaging people on a grassroots level. And that's the only way that we're going to be able to sustain these movements and change districts which have traditionally been voting for conservatives and are now voting for populists to be voting for socialists and progressives in order to make the Europe that we want to see. And I think it's very important that we continue to engage young people, not just as attendees or in the background of photos, but as real participants in the party process and on the electoral level. Because unless we represent everyone who we see in the society in the decision-making process, we're not going to be able to make decisions that help everybody. Because as I believe myself personally, the people closest to the pain and the struggle need to be closest to the power-making process. Thank you.
Okay, officially, I think you will both rule the world someday, but we'll talk about that another time. Last word for this particular, I will give to you, lovely lady. Yes, do you need a microphone? Come up on stage. Here we go. Stand, sit, whatever you like.
So, welcome everybody. My name is Gwendolyn, and I'm from Estonia. And with these two lovely people, I'm also a graduate of the School of Democracy, and also I am one of the Europe Together ambassadors. So, yesterday we had the lovely chance for some of us to join a workshop about e-activism and e-democracy. Well, before today, we saw this lovely graph of countries that are sadly now, well, that have high percentages of conservatives in their parliaments. Well, sadly, one country has definitely joined them, and that's Estonia. 19.2% of the parliament in Estonia is, at the moment, conservative. And there's a high chance that they may end up in the Estonian government. And today, or actually last night, I got a message that there will be a march. The e-activism has become real activism. We will be going out against having the conservatives in the government. That's what's going to happen in Estonia. And luckily, we can see that there's going to happen something. And there's also another small thing that I have to say. While I was listening to the lovely speeches, I wrote up a little bit of a poem. So sadly, it is not too finalized or finished, but I hope you guys like it. I may not believe in many things, especially in liars, cowards, hypocrites. But I do believe in liberty. I do believe in equality. I do believe in freedom. I do believe in us. Us, we are the voice of the future. We are the voice of our generation. We have heard history, his story. But we are here so everybody could have a mystery, my story. The history cannot be retold, because otherwise the mysteries will be depressing and cold. All of us have a voice, and together it's power. It is the power of change. It is the power of freedom. It is the power of future. It is the power of Europe. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, last word. Thank you very much. I think we need more poems, more singing, more of all of that. Last word, and then I've got you, but you can't exceed the length of their last words because they're younger in the combined and I do the maths. But anyway, I think you want to say something about the march. Is that correct? I need to give you the floor for that. Yes.
Yes. So this Sunday, there's going to be a march for Europe. It's very important that we show up, because in these countries that we like to rag on, they tell their citizens Europe isn't popular. You know Europe isn't popular. Europe is bad. It's the source of all of our problems. And young people in those countries may start to believe it. But it's up to us to show them that we see Europe as our future, as our guarantor for our rights, our liberties, social equality, sustainability, a planet that isn't going to die in 10 or 100 years, but is going to move on, and a thriving human race. So it's very important that we go to this march, either here in Brussels or in your home countries, and show the rest of the world that Europe has a future, and that future is us young people.
Thank you. So what you're actually saying is from that before when we said don't be obedient, now you need to be obedient. Okay? He's saying show up, be obedient, and show up. Did you want to add anything to...
No, just that I think we need to march for a very specific kind of Europe, and I think our friends across the pond in London, a lot of the criticisms of Lexit, that is the left's case for leaving, is that Europe is failing to ensure basic human dignity and social democracy. So I think it's important as leftists that when we're marching tomorrow, we don't just march for Europe for the sake of Europe, but we march because of the values that we stand for as socialists.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I am really, truly, tremendously impressed by your eloquence and your passion. So fantastic. It's great to have you right at the end. You're the best people for it. You may kindly take your seats. Thank you very much. You may give them a warm round of applause. That was great. No, that was perfect. That was perfect. You're fabulous. Do you want to come and say a couple of words, please, Nicolas? Do you want to... After... It's not easy, but I think...
I just wanted to say what you will hear now when you go out and you say, well, we have the right solutions. We have the right plan to all these problems, inequality, climate change. They will tell you, all the conservatives, all those who say, well, yes, there is a problem, but you know, these are crazy solutions. This will never work. I will just quote one politician, because they are also good politicians, and that's Nelson Mandela. And Nelson Mandela said, it always seems impossible until it is done. Now we have to go out and show that we can do it. And we only can do it with your support, with your help, with your commitment, with your shouting, with your ideas, with your support. Stiglitz said something marvelous, and he said, well, marvelous is perhaps not the right word, tremendous, well, that was the other guy who said that. He said, well, when the Nazi occupied Europe, nobody said, well, in the US or wherever, well, there's no money to fight them. Money was found to fight them and to win the war for civilization. Well, the issue now is also a question of civilization. It's equality, because we think that our European values are freedom and equality, respect of the individual, but also solidarity. And to implement these values, yes, we have to find the right resources. And they are there. They have been mentioned. And it is not possible to tell, though, the less wealthy that they have to finance the climate change or the consequences of climate change. There's a French economist who has found out that the wealthiest part of our society, they have 40 times more emissions of CO2 than the less wealthy. But the less wealthy, they pay 4 times more out of their revenue in taxes and other contributions for linked to carbon emissions. So this is not normal, and this has to be changed. And therefore, it's so important to convey this very clear message. Yes, we have to fight climate change. We have to bring bold solutions, but we have to do it in a sustainable way. We have to do it in the way that equality in our society comes back. There has to be too much gaps created in the past. Well, we have to close these gaps, and we have to come together in Europe, and we are very, very optimistic for what happens also in the US with the Green New Deal. Yes, the Green New Deal is our report. It's very close. It's the same démarche. It's the same idea. It's a bold approach to both problems, inequality and environmental destruction. My last word is, I read yesterday, I think, that a whale died on a shore in the Philippines. And when they opened the whale, they found in the stomach of the whale 40 kilos of plastic. 40 kilos of plastic. This shows what we are doing to nature, what we are doing to our ocean. And this cannot continue. It's our common, and especially yours, your generation responsibility to bring change. Bold change and rapid change. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very, very much. It's always good to end an event with a great deal of passion and eloquence. So, can I just do the thank yous, please? That's my job. All our clever, very passionate speakers, the young ones, the old ones, the in-between ones, like myself. Thank you very, very much. And thank you also for letting me be what I always call Hurricane Katrina. It is the least enviable part of my job to be a traffic cop, but there we go. Otherwise, you don't get to go and have a drink before midnight. I was going to thank the interpreters, but they've already having a drink before midnight. Thank you to the technicians for making sure that everything works smoothly. Thank you so much for all of you for staying here, sticking with it, listening, staying off your phones mostly, I think, both those of you here and for those who are still with us, I hope, online. Of course, the march is happening this weekend. Don't forget, it's part of a much bigger initiative. The one thing I did want to mention is it kicks off from Place Polaire, that's probably an awful accent, at 1:30, and it meanders through and makes its way to Place Luxembourg, okay? And there's a fabulous ending, a stage filled with diverse people who are going to add all their joy and their diverse perspectives and their music and their poems and their words and everything else that we've had today. Finish it all up to talk about what Europe and the way they envisage it to be. So that is it. You can tweet before the march. Remember, #MarchForEurope, and you can also get involved in an online debate. So get your trainers on, ladies and gentlemen, and as this lovely gentleman said, get there, obey. All right, so now you can actually disengage your brain from all this content. The one thing I ask is do not run away with the headsets. They're very, very expensive. You will be frisked and brought to the floor. Okay, so please, I wish you a very, very good evening. Before that, I think I'm supposed to ask everybody to come to the stage for number 1, a photo, and number 2, for the European hymn. Okay, we cannot end the evening without music. So please, everybody, come forward. Come forward, come forward, come forward.
shake my nerves and you rattle my brain. Too much of love drives a man insane. You broke my will, but what a thrill. Goodness gracious, great balls of fire. I let you love what I thought it was funny. You came along and woo, now honey, I've changed my mind. This love is fine. Goodness gracious, great balls of fire. Kisses the face.